I love math.
So here we're asked to solve. I'm going to put this in a big bold color so you can see it. And we need to isolate this. This is not an isolated absolute value equation because you have something in front. The common mistake is to add these together and think it's 5 plus 8. But remember, if this problem was something like 5 plus 8x equals 101, you would not combine these and say these are like terms. You would not say this is 13x. So you can't say this is 13 times absolute value. So when you're doing this type of problem, you would subtract 5 first. So we'll do the same over here. You're left with 8 absolute value of negative 10n minus 2 equals 96. The relationship here is what? Multiplication, so we'll divide by 8 on both sides. You have the absolute value of negative 10n minus 2 equals, goes in 1, 12. Class, is it isolated now? Yes. Nothing in front, nothing behind. This is where I now split it into 2. You have 1 plus and 1 minus. We learned on Friday you take the argument, which is between the absolute value signs. You make one positive, one negative, because that's the definition of an absolute value. So I have negative 10n minus 2 equals 12, and negative 10n minus 2 equals 12. Class, do I need the parentheses? So I have negative 10n minus 2 equals 12. And then you just go about solving that. Add 2. Divided by negative 10. Everyone say fractions. Fractions are better. Divided by 2, so you have what? Negative 7 over 5? Raise your hand if you got that. Let's work on the right side. There's 2 ways of getting rid of the negative. Raise your hand if you like to distribute. That's perfectly fine. Raise your hand if you divide by negative 1. Both of those are perfectly fine. These negative 1 divided by negative 1 is just 1. So you're left with negative 10n minus 2 equals negative 12. Add 2 to both sides. Divided by negative 10, n equals 1. Now, this next step is kind of weird, but it's just a way of checking your answer. So, you normally didn't do this when you were probably back in 8th, 9th grade. But because it's equal, not drawn to scale, your solution here is just a solid dot. Does that make sense? Because it's equal. It's not an inequality, you don't have to shade it any direction. And a negative 7/5. Not drawn to scale, same thing. These are your solutions. Now, let's make sure it's a solution. Let's put in 1. Negative 10 times 1. Negative 10 minus 2. Absolute value of negative 12. 8 times 12. 96 plus 5. 101. You recognize what we're doing, we're just working backwards, isn't it? Negative 7/5. Negative 10 times negative 7. 70 divided by 5. 14 minus 2. Absolute value of 12. 8 times 12. 96 plus 5. Does that equal 101? True. So these are my 2 solutions. So again, when the math becomes more difficult, see if you can make it a parallel problem to something you know. You know not to add 5 plus 8. They're not like terms. You can't add those 2 together as well.